Here we go. So, in your container, you guys have your bin. In your bin, you have a variety of tools. You have your clay. And you're not going to do any of this just yet. So you just know that you have your tools here. I'm just going to go over what the tools are, what their purposes are, how you're going to use them, and then I'm going to show you guys how to make a little pinch pot, and that's what we're going to do today. So you should have your piece of, when you're working, you should get your piece of oak tag or chipboard down on your table so you have a nice safe space to work without making a huge mess. You guys have a card. If you looked in your bin, you're probably like, why do I have this card? What is this purpose? These are old cards, but they're awesome because you can use them to kind of scrape and shape the clay. So that's good. You guys have a small sponge, which you will not need right now, but you have a small sponge, and this is for kind of wiping down and making things perfect. You have this wooden tool, which is really good for blending and getting into small spaces where your fingers can't, because fingers are big, and if you're trying to blend some things into one another, you can use this tool to do that. You have two paint brushes. One of them is going to be for use with slip, and the other one is going to kind of be for use with like smoothing things out. You have a knife tool that you will use for kind of scoring and slipping, also cutting clay. Again, be careful, they are kind of sharp. This is another tool that you'll use kind of like to blend some stuff together. You have a fettling knife, which I did not grab, but it's a knife with a wooden handle, and it's a long, sharp knife. This is what you can use to cut clay and, again, to kind of score things. But you also have a plastic knife in there, which will do the same exact thing if you need to like blend things together and score it. I grabbed a couple other tools. You also have this needle tool. This is sharp. Obviously, you do not want to be stabbing anything with it. A needle tool. This is what you're going to kind of use to do a variety of things. It's good for working on the wheel. It's good for scoring and slipping, or scoring. And then you have a steel scraper. So this is good for, again, blending clay. Awesome for scoring because it's got these teeth on here. All you got to do is scratch it up. So those are the things that you guys should have in your container to work from. So what we're going to do today, when I say we're going to make our little pinch pots, you are going to, and not right now, but you are going to take your clay and you're going to grab a piece about the size of a ping pong ball. So when you work with clay, this clay came right off the block. When it comes to us, it comes in 50-pound chunks. So it's a big block of clay straight from the manufacturer. This clay is, like when it comes, it's perfectly formed. There's no air bubbles in it. As you're working with clay, you'll recycle leftover pieces. And when we get to that point, I'll show you and what to do. But like, you don't have to worry with any air bubbles being in this. And the problem with air bubbles is when you put them in the kiln, and when you build something and you make something and you don't know there's air bubbles in it and you put it in the kiln, that you are going to, things will explode. So you don't want to have air bubbles in it. So rest assured, this clay is straight from the manufacturer. There's no air bubbles in it, nothing you need to worry about. But you can feel and you can see how soft it is. This is nice, soft clay. We're going to talk about tomorrow the different stages of clay. But for today, we're just going to work on doing the demo, a real quick, small little pinch pot that you guys can work on and something that you can actually do to get your hands dirty. So what you want to do is, when you get started, you're going to cut off a piece of clay that's about the size of a ping pong ball. So no bigger than a golf ball. So like a chunk about this size. And always, 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 the rest of your clay that you are not working on, as soon as you take what you need, seal this bag up and put it away. Because once this clay dries out, then you've got a big problem as far as having usable clay, but also it's very hard to recycle it, especially with you guys being at home and not being able to do it here. So always put your clay away as soon as you're done so you don't forget. So you're going to take this clay and you're going to make it into a circle. You can roll it on your board or you can roll it in your hands. But you want to start with a small ball. You will get dirty, like you can see the dust on my hands. This is where you don't want to eat anything because you don't want to eat the clay dust. Like I said yesterday too, clay likes to suck the water out of your hands. Clay likes to be wet, so it's going to dry your hands out. So if you have lotion at home, you might just want to apply it every so often if your hands are drying out. All right, so you want to get it into a ball. You want it to be, as close to a ball as possible because it will only make your life harder if it's not. So once you have this, we're going to make what's called a pinch pot. It's called a pinch pot because you're going to use a pinching technique, like when you pinch your fingers together. And that's how you're going to build. There's different techniques in ceramics, and there's different techniques you guys are going to learn. Obviously, in Ceramics A, that's what we do. So pinch pots is one of them. It's one way to build something with clay. So you're going to put your ball of clay in the palm of your hand. And ladies, if you have longer nails, the clay is going to get right in there. So don't even try to worry about it. But you're going to take your thumb in the center, and you're going to put a hole almost all the way down. You do not want to go through the bottom because you do not want a hole in your container. So you're going to put it in the center, as close to the center as possible, and as far down as possible too. And then what you're going to do is pinch slightly. You don't want to like pinch it and squeeze it, and you want to do this gradually. So a little pinch, little pressure, and you're going to turn it as you pinch it. So you can see my hole is getting a little bigger, and you can see my pot's getting a little wider too. So pinch it and turn it, pinch it and turn it, pinch it and turn it. The hardest thing that I think we're going to have, or I'm going to have with you guys, is clay needs to be a certain thickness before you can fire it. If clay is too thick, you cannot fire it or it explodes in the kiln, which A, destroys your project, but it also takes out everybody else's project around yours in the kiln. So your friends and classmates have been working on these things for weeks, and then your project explodes and it shatters everybody else's. So, and that happens because the walls are too thick, and air and water can get trapped in it. And as the kiln cooks it, the kiln goes up to like 2,000 degrees. As it heats it, the water evaporates and then it shatters because it has nowhere to go. It boils. So thickness is something that I'm going to harp on you guys about a lot, and I need you all to like be honest about your clay thickness. It can be too thin if you're about to rip a hole in it, but you can feel that. It should be the thickness of a pencil. So everything that you make this year should have the thickness of a pencil or less, no bigger or no thicker. Also, just waste clay, and it's just not good. So what you're going to do is you're just taking it and you're pinching it, and you can feel how much clay is in here. You can feel your fingers on each side of it. So you're pinching it thinner, pinching, pinching, pinching. See these little cracks right here? That's okay. It's okay to have those. And you're going to keep going. You want to have a flat bottom because you don't want it to fall over. Like I said, you're going to use this as an actual slip jar container. So you want to make sure it has a flat bottom. And I'm going to show you guys how to do one more thing, and then I'm going to we're going to work together. So make sure you're pinching it thin and you're turning it, pinching it and turning it as you go up. Now, maybe I didn't pinch it all evenly and I wasn't perfect with my center, and maybe like my top is wonky and it's like not lopsided, but it's not like a straight across flat top. Nobody likes that. So I'm going to show you guys how to trim something, how to measure something and trim something. So when you want to cut something, especially something that's a circle, like if you have a cup at home, it's not all like dippy on one side and big on the other. It's straight across the top, and that makes it look professional. So that's how you want to do everything with every project that you make. So I'm going to show you, we're going to trim the top, and then we're going to put it on the bottom so it has a nice little stand to stand on. So in order to do that, if I shove my knife into the clay, it's going to like tip over my pot and squish it and rip it, and it's just bad. So you don't ever want to do that. You never want to like cut it like you're cutting a steak. What you want to do is you're going to rest your hand on the table, hold the knife, and you're going to hold it in one spot, and you're going to turn your pot while you're holding it. And what's happening is I'm just scratching a line onto the surface. So I'm turning, 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 turning. I'm scratching a line. And if I did it right, my line will meet up. So you can see how this line goes across. Then I can support my pot with my hand and cut it through carefully. My finger is in here with this knife, so I'm not like stabbing myself or cutting myself. I'm just going very slowly and carefully. cutting it. And then eventually you'll cut it so it cuts off. So now I have this little sharp edge. I can take my finger and I can blend it. I can also tap it down from the top to kind of flatten it out. I can smooth here. You want to have it nice and smooth though and professional looking. All right, so and I'm not going to take all the time to smooth this out and do all this for you. I want you guys to get to work. What you're going to do is take this little bit of clay. You're going to roll it up. And like I said, we need a flat bottom because you're going to sit this on the table, and if it's falling over, then it's not very good. So you can make what's called a foot. When you have a bottom of a pot or a bowl, a foot is the part that sits on the table. So you can either flatten this out, you can coil it, make a coil. But what I want you to do, you're going to practice slipping it and scoring and blending. So you're going to use this tool right here. Rough up the surface. You always need to, and you can see like that, you always need to score both sides of anything you're attaching. And you can take a dot of water and put it on here. And then you put it, the slip is what you're making with this pot, but you're going to attach the foot to the bottom. You're going to support it with one hand, and then you can use your tools because I can't fit my finger in here. You're going to use your tools to blend it in. And blend it together and get it stuck. So you can blend it this way, where you're pushing it down. But you want it to be attached and you want it to be permanent, and then you can take your finger. So at any point in time, if you feel like this is getting a little dry, you can just take a little, like a dot of water on your finger and blend it here. So what I want you guys to do, you guys are also going to start while I'm working on this, and I'm going to show you some texture techniques so that if you want to watch while you're working, just to see what kind of textures you can do, you can. But you need to put your name on here somewhere before you're done, and a good place to put it is the bottom, and like your initials are good. And I'm not done this, so I'm going to end up blending that in later and have to do it again. But initials are on the bottom, so we know whose it is. But you also need to cover the outside in texture or design. So you can scratch into it, you can draw into the clay, you can take a small piece, and this is like one of my favorite textures that I like to do, and you just press texture into it with a tool. So you can kind of see different tools and like how you can blend texture in there. You can scratch it if you wanted to. You can put lines into it, anything you want, but it has to have your name on it somewhere. Has to be totally smooth on the inside and then have a texture on the outside. And then what you're going to do when you finish these for today, you can put it in your bin, like done. You're totally done. Textures on there and everything. Put it in your bin, take the lid off, and just let it dry tonight. Keep your other clay sealed up. Or you can put the lid back on top and put this on top of it, just somewhere where it'll dry tonight. Okay? Do you guys have any questions? Let me